When it comes to upgrades on a bike, you might be asking yourself, why would I say to go with something like a nice set of wheels over changing something like your brakes or your drivetrain as your next upgrade? There are many, many reasons why you would want to upgrade lots of parts on your bike. But I think especially on lighter weight bikes like road bikes, gravel bikes, cross-country bikes, or maybe some lighter weight trail bikes, wheels are probably one of the best upgrades you can do to a bike. It matters a little bit less on heavier weight trail bikes and enduro bikes, but we can get to that on a later date. Wheels really, really help in the way a ride feels to the rider itself, and they will make you ride faster and more comfortably over the long run. One of the first and foremost reasons to upgrade your wheels is weight. This might be very obvious to a lot of people, but it really is crazy how much it can change on a bike. So let's say on a cross-country mountain bike, you have the choice of choosing between two carbon fiber cranks. Carbon fiber is always a very light material, so people like carbon cranks on their cross-country mountain bikes to lose weight. And you have an X1 SRAM carbon crank or an XX1 SRAM carbon crank. One is closer to the $275 mark. The other one is almost $500. So it's a very big price difference, but people pay the money for XX1 cranks because you save around 80 to 100 grams depending on the size of the crank and such. That's a pretty big difference, and people pay a lot of good money for that. 80 to 100 grams seems like a really, really big number. And when you're talking about wheels, just for comparison, when we're talking about the cranks and how much weight you can save there, wheels is even crazier. This right here is a Synchros Silverton SL wheel. The Silverton is Synchros' cross-country wheel lineup, and they have their most bottom-end one, which is called the Silverton 2.0, which is an alloy wheel. Comes on a lot of stock Scott Sparks. Those wheels weigh over 1,800 grams, almost 1,850 grams. This one right here, which is still their same lineup with the same internal rim width and all those things, and meant for the same kind of bike, but made out of carbon fiber, is 1,260 grams, which is crazy, which means you were saving well over 600 grams in a wheel set alone. And think about how much people spend just to save 80 or 90 on your cranks. Think what you're spending on your wheels. And not is that just 600 grams, which is a massive difference. For all your Freedom Units users out there, that is well over 1.5 pounds of weight lost on your bike. So not only is the weight you could save on wheels a ton of weight, and that's a great place to save weight, the best part about saving weight on your wheels is the fact that it's all rotational weight. If you got a wheel set that was, say, 300 grams lighter than your current wheel set, you are saving what is almost 2 to 2.5 kilograms of static parts on your bike, which is really, really crazy. The one thing to know about rotational weight, however, though, is that rotational weight is gonna matter more the farther away from the axis of movement it is, which means if you wanna save weight on your wheels, you could do something like get maybe more of a mid-range hub, get mid-range spokes, and then get a very nice rim. So this is actually a pretty popular way to upgrade your wheels without breaking the bank, is by doing a very nice rim and then with more like mid-range hub components and spokes, because you're saving weight farther out from the rotational axis, which is where it matters, because the farther away from the rotation of axis is the more you're gonna feel it on the bike. So maybe spend a little bit less on the hubs you're lacing the rim to, and then you spend on a nicer rim, and that's gonna matter much, much more to you in terms of weight. Now, aside from weight, whenever you get into the conversation with upgrading wheels into carbon fiber wheels and such, the subject of ride quality always pops up in the conversation. Now, why is this? So when you have a carbon fiber wheel versus like a standard alloy wheel, people always throw around this term called ride quality. Honestly, there are a lot of factors actually affecting the ride quality of a wheel, and people just use ride quality as a very large blanket term. But what is actually happening within the wheel itself that is making your ride feel better, feel nicer, more than just the weight of it? There are a couple of reasons for this, and one of the biggest ones is the stiffness of the wheel. Especially on a mountain bike, you can feel this quite a bit. Like in descending, an alloy wheel in descents tends to flex a little bit side to side. So as you're hitting rocks and stuff and you have your spokes, your hub might stay centered, but your rim might flex a little bit this direction, side to side, as you're descending. That is what a lot of people refer to as tracking. Same thing happens with like rear shocks. You refer to like, oh, this rear end of this bike tracked better than the rear end on this bike. A lot of that componentry can be due to the wheels. A carbon fiber wheel is a much stiffer platform that is more laterally stiff, which means it doesn't flex as much side to side in a descent. So people would say, oh yeah, when I switched to carbon wheels, my rear wheel tracked more predictably. So in a descent, knowing where your rear wheel is gonna be and having it flex less means that you can trust your rear wheel better, and you start to move faster because you know where your rear wheel is gonna be at all times due to it tracking at a better speed and along those things. This also matters a lot in corners. When you corner on an alloy wheel and you kind of lean into it and shove it really hard, alloy wheels tend to, like, let's say you're going into a right-hander and you're cornering this way on a mountain bike, your wheel would tend to do this a little bit or flex either direction. A carbon wheel is gonna flex quite a bit less in corners, which makes you feel more stable as a rider and will let you corner faster. Another really awesome thing about carbon fiber is the fact that you can use it to make incredibly different shapes and profiles on a wheel than your standard alloy wheel. So a lot of people might know that the deeper the wheel's depth is, you know, from the rim down to here, the deeper that goes, the more aerodynamic you get on a wheel. And it helps cut through the air a little bit faster. While this is true, you see it a lot less on alloy wheels because making a deep rim on alloy wheels also subsequently makes those wheels quite a bit heavier. Making wider or deeper wheels with alloy also makes for an incredibly heavy wheel, which means the bike does not feel great when it rides, because a very heavy wheel, as discussed earlier, is going to be harder to rotate and it's going to make the bike not ride as well. So a lot of companies just do not make very deep or wide alloy wheels because when they want those wheels on the bike, they still want the bike to feel light and springy. So that's one of the biggest benefits of moving to carbon is when you move to a carbon wheel, you can afford to go with a much deeper rim profile this way. And then you can also have a wider internal rim width without sacrificing on weight because carbon is a much significantly lighter material while still holding its strength. So internal rim width going wider and wider has been a very common trend over the last little bit. It is going to be most visually noticeable on gravel and mountain bikes, but it is doing the exact same thing on a road bike. If you ask somebody why internal rim width matters, they're going to give you a couple answers. One of the biggest reasons is going to be that it increases the volume inside the wheel in terms of air. Increased air volume means you can run lower pressures and increases comfort to the rider. Comfort is a really big issue nowadays, and it's a lot of things that racers have been realizing in cross-country mountain bikes and road racing, everything, is that more comfort means more to the rider in a race than weight does. So they will go with a wider tire and a wider wheel, even if it might increase a little bit on weight from the same carbon fiber wheel and a narrow rim width, just because the comfort they gain from it actually makes them ride faster in the long run of a ride, just because they spend less energy trying to keep themselves comfortable. They fatigue a lot less. Inner rim width can really affect that, not just by increasing volume, but it also increases sidewall support. If you see here, we have two wheels. They're both alloy fulcrum wheels. This alloy fulcrum over here has a 19 millimeter internal rim width, and then this one has a 23 millimeter internal rim width. Both wheels are set up with the same Maxxis Rambler 700 by 40C gravel tire, and you can see by looking at them that they do look quite a bit different. On this narrower rim width wheel, you can see that even though they have the same tire on there, the tire is ballooning and rounding on the top quite a bit, and your cornering knobs are pretty far on the sides. So to get these cornering knobs to actually hook on the ground, you have to lean very far in order to get traction on those knobs, because as you have a tire that's rounded like this and a narrower internal rim width, like more traditional wheels have been, it squeezes the tire this way and pulls that center tread in. And you can see that right here where the sidewall profile of this tire is very squeezed in, and you can see the sidewall looks very rounded. That rounding in the sidewall also puts stress on the sidewall, which is why it doesn't feel as supple to the rider, because it's stressed and it's pulled inwards. On a wider internal rim width, like this one right here, you can see that the sidewall is a little bit flatter on the sides, which is one of the reasons why that's what we call sidewall support in terms of moving to a wider rim. A wider rim increases sidewall support. How that reduces fatigue is because the sidewall is not as much under much stress, so it's a little bit flatter, so it can move up and down a little bit more, acting as a little bit of vibration dampening for potholes, cracks in the road, or if you're on a gravel bike, for dirt, pebbles, things like that, any like rough road, it reduces fatigue to the rider. So that's how the rider has less fatigue and can therefore ride longer, more comfortably. On inner rim width, traction is also a big thing on inner rim width. As you have a wheel that rolls on inner rim width, you can, once you compress and put weight on the wheel down here, the side knobs On the wider one, you only have to roll the tire about right there to get traction on the side knobs on this 40C with a 23 internal rim. On the exact same tire, on a much narrower rim, where it makes the sidewalls balloon, it makes the tire like balloon, and it makes the side knobs go farther out. With the same amount of pressure, you have to lean the tire significantly more, to the point where your bike would almost be at a 45-degree angle to the ground to get those side knobs to hook. That matters quite a bit on gravel and mountain bikes, because the more traction you have on those cornering knobs when you are in a corner, the safer you'll be, the faster you can corner, and honestly, the more secure you're gonna feel as a rider. If you guys are looking to upgrade the wheel set on your own bike, feel free to visit our website, contenderbicycles.com, or visit us in-store in Park City. We're always able to help you find what wheel set might fit your ride style and your bike the best, and try to get you rolling on something more comfortable and more efficient.